But that also doesn't mean that when a member of parliament is involved in a corruption offense, I will let him go. I mean, I have to be fair. You know, so I cannot be docile. My appointment gags me because I can't criticize you again. It gags me. That's why since I was nominated, nobody has heard a word from me. Right? But if in the discharge of the duties, a member falls foul of the law, my duty, if properly investigated, and there is a case, to deal with the matter. Other countries, Netanyahu is under investigation. Trump is under investigation. Temer in Brazil is under investigation. I haven't said that, don't put words into my mouth. All I'm trying to say is that the law is no respecter of persons. Consequently, the very fact that I have criticized Parliament as a body doesn't mean that because you are calling my attention to that criticism, I'll be intimidated not to deal with a member of Parliament if he's involved in a corruption offense. I'm trying to disabuse of it. I'll deal with it squarely.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I mentioned two institutions. Mr. Chairman, my senior cadre has not dealt with the second aspect. I mentioned Parliament, I mentioned Tiger Eye. And I said a lot of things that you used against.
Mr. Chairman, when you ask me so many questions, it's difficult to keep all of them. Tiger Eye, that was a matter, a constitutional matter I raised against Tiger Eye, a registered company under the Companies Code. And the reason why I didn't pursue the matter further was because some people had gone to the Supreme Court with the matter. It doesn't mean I don't believe in what I wrote. You see, but as I said, Tiger Eye is not on trial. I won't make a comment about Tiger Eye when they would have the chance to answer. But I'm saying the reason why I didn't move further on that company, and indeed, it is not known as Tiger Eye in the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Interior. They changed their name. I've forgotten the name. I didn't know this matter will be raised. But they changed their name. You know, but it is not fair for me to come and make statements about them here when they have no right of reply. And I believe that if Tiger Eye thinks that I said anything that defamed them, they know the right forum. And I will meet them there. I will adduce my evidence. And at the end of the day, I spoke about people holding service passports. It was admitted, you know. And when we get to the court of defamation, then we will know public trial. Even a special prosecutor can be sued in a civil action. I will adduce evidence, but I don't think it's fair when they are not here for us to use the privilege we have to raise issues about them so that I may make a comment which may not be fair on their part because they cannot answer. I don't think that would be fair, Mr. Chairman. And I will crave your indulgence that I be not compelled to make statements about them when they cannot respond.
Chairman, to my second question, and it's almost like a follow-up to this. You also, in another article, defending citizens' rights and freedoms from unconstitutional conduct by government and its unlawful covert agent, Tiger Eye, by Martin A.B.K. Amidu. I wish you always add comrade. And I quote, "My researches led me to conclude that the government has for some time now been acting unconstitutionally with an unregistered and fraudulent Tiger IPI in promoting an..."
Honorable Nilante van der Poel, the man has said that it is inappropriate to make...
This is about the constitutionality.
Then move to other thing and stop referring to comments on the Tiger.
I want to know how unconstitutional will it be for a government to work with any public-spirited institution or individual in helping to eradicate or minimize corruption in the country?
Mr. Chairman, if the government is paying the fellow to do so, it must say it. If the fellow is acting gratis, it must say it. And the perception I got was that the whole job was not gratis. I think that is enough. But I said I don't want to make a statement about people who cannot defend it. But that's my view. And under constitutional law, to covertly snoop on the government, to use covert agents to snoop on people who are not government institutions, it's unconstitutional, clearly. I mean, if you box this room without the knowledge of Parliament, right, and you want to use it for a trial, it will be unconstitutional. Those evidence will not be admissible. That's the point.
Mr. Chairman, my next question has to do with Why?
That's your third and last question. Please proceed.
The act which establishes your office has pronounced the issue of plea bargaining. During your time as Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and during the time of the late President Mills, did anything happen which brings into focus plea bargaining involving the former Speaker of Parliament, Kobna Bejina Sechius? Yes.
With me personally?
No, I'm asking.
I have never discussed with Professor Mills, and he has never discussed with me, either as presidential advisor, Minister of the Interior, or Attorney General, anything about Kobna Bejina Sechius. It's never arisen. I'm hearing it from you for the first time.
I follow up.
No, please. Thank you.
I follow up.
Thank you. Ni Kwate Tatos Glover.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Martin Alamisi Benz Kaiser Amidu, congratulations. Kofi Nachi. No, it's not fair.
Hold on.
What is it?
What is not fair? Nikwate, please hold on.
Mr. Chairman, he's interrupting me.
He is speaking to cameras. They are all around here. And he knows that he's doing that deliberately. Yes, Nikwate.
If Nilante wants, I will cede my questions for him. I'll give you one. Honorable Amidu, throughout this morning, in your responses to questions, you have demonstrated courage. You have demonstrated passion and forthrightness in your quest to contribute in the fight against corruption. The mentioning of the name Martin Amidu sometimes sends shivers down the spine of people. Are you that fearful?
Mr. Chairman, the problem is with perception and the circle of friends you have. In the Attorney General's department, when I come down from my car at 6:30 in the morning, I walk up straight to my office and I get engrossed in my work. And then when I'm coming down, maybe going to the castle, I just ran downstairs. So there were some attorneys who said their deputy doesn't smile. So that was the perception. One day, a young woman walks into my office. She's scared to come to my office. She's told that, no, when you meet him personally, you will be surprised. So she walks into my office. Her retina is almost detaching. I hope she will hear it. And then she has to be in America in a week. Otherwise, she will go blind. So she walks to my office and then she tells me, I said, what? You're working for the Republic of Ghana. Something can be done about it. So I took my phone and called Lisbeth. Can you tell the old man I want to see him? Lisbeth talks to the old man. I go to see him. I say, sir, this lawyer is doing some work. 1 week, I will be blind. He said, I'm talking about President Rollins. Chief, leave it with me. Chief, leave it with me. The girl went to the U.S., got her retina corrected. She came and she rendered service to Mother Ghana. And she went around telling people, no, if you don't go to him, you don't know that he's such a nice man. My last DPP, Gertrude Akins, when I was coming to the ministry, because she worked in the regions, Kumasi, Kofurudua, she never worked in Accra, and people tell perceptions and stories. I go to court and I'm arguing and they just see on TV. So it's just somebody who is arguing forcefully and all that. She goes to see J.C. Amonomoni and is worried. I said, this one is coming again here. So I come and we work. And then she comes to Mr. Amidu. I didn't know you were so open-minded and so free, so, we were told that you were coming to create problems for us. But I've worked nicely with you. When I left office, there was a case in court. She volunteered to be my witness. What I'm trying to say is that when people don't know you well, they have perceptions about you. But I have defended the voiceless I have not known. I have defended people who thought I was their enemies. But when they got into trouble, I even found them lawyers. So I am not the person people think I am. I may not be having a smiling face. I may not be having a handsome face. But at least I have a heart that loves people. That is why I fight for the ordinary man. I don't like political who cheat the nation. I don't.
Mr. Chairman, I'm fine. Oh yes, I need it. Mr. Chairman, my second question, Mr. Amidu, how prepared are you physically, mentally, psychologically to this task that has, and spiritually, thank you very much, and spiritually, with regards to this Herculean task that has been given to you by His Excellency? This appointment has been given to you by the President.
Well, even my nomination itself was a big problem because my telephone won't stop. Because people will call you and call and call and call and call. But what I believe is my Creator normally sees me through. And He sees me through, giving me strength and courage. All the articles that has been criticized and read came from my computer, written by myself, no assistance. All the attorneys I've worked with will tell you I read every file. I look at every docket that comes before me. I look at all the decided cases. The lawyers who have practiced with me in court will tell you Amidu knows his opponent's case before he prepares his case. That's the blessing God has given me, and I'm praying that He will still give me that blessing to continue, at least so that I can help to see whether we can reduce the menace we are all trying to fight. It's not in my power. I'm human. And whether I live 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's not in my hand. But as long as I have life in me, I'll do my best.
Mr. Chairman, this morning I tried to ask a question, but you stopped me, but I have the opportunity now. On page 5 and 6 of your CV, where you were head of delegation to Commonwealth Law Ministers Conference or meeting, one in Sydney, another one in Sri Lanka, then the last one in Port of Spain, in Trinidad and Tobago. I was trying to find out whether in our contemporary politics today, Commonwealth is of relevance because today they come into force of the European Union. The British, even though they are trying to exit from the European Union, they see more of themselves as Europeans trying to help their cause and their colleagues than even the countries that they colonize. So I want to find out, with these your meetings that you've been, what can you share with us, whether indeed in our contemporary politics today, the Commonwealth is still relevant over time? Thank you.
Well, as far as my experience goes, the Commonwealth was, is, and will be useful. That we come from a common background and fraternity is not deniable. It offers a forum for people who are under the same colonial rule to discuss ideas and to exchange ideas. There are a lot of assistance which the Commonwealth Secretariat gives to Commonwealth countries, which otherwise we will not have. And normally, the person you know best is the person you have dealt with for years. I remember the joke that when we get to England, we just pass by Westminster and then we salute the Queen even though she doesn't see us. We feel more comfortable in Commonwealth countries than in other countries. But my knowledge of the meetings is that they are robust. They take account of all nations' problems within the Commonwealth, particularly the smaller islands. And we exchange draftsperson. The drafting school was in Ghana here. Justice V.C. R.A.C. Clapp he ran it in Ghana, he ran it in East Africa, he ran it in Barbados. And it exchanged lawyers from different countries to build resources for us. I don't think singly we can achieve it. And I think like in international politics, you must have friends. And I believe the Commonwealth is an area where we are able to articulate our views. Even if Britain leaves the Commonwealth, the EU, we knew Britain when it was not in the EU, so what's wrong with it if they leave? We'll still have good interaction with them. In any case, some of our parents fought their war, and so we see them as friends, because my father's rank medals were issued by the Queen. I would not think that they will just abandon us, in spite of the problems that happened before independence and all that. We still have been able to come together. And the Commonwealth is a great organization which we should continue. And don't forget that the Secretariat is made up of members from the various Commonwealth countries. It's not made up of British alone. I don't know who the General Secretary is today. So it's a collective association. And I think we have more to benefit from them than to lose. Gambia withdrew, and you saw how their democracy went on and finally unraveled. It is better we are in than to be out. I thank you very much.
On the minority side, I think the last person is the only standing friend, one of the few standing friends of the nominee. We will watch how you ask your questions.
The way you are biasing what I should say. I am coming to grill him. I'm coming to grill him. The chairman, the president said that just by announcing my friend's name, he has put the fear of God in those who want to commit crime. Is it true?
Mr. Chairman, the presence of Jerry John Rawlings on the scene was enough to warn people to reduce crime. So if my appointment has the same effect, I would know whether it's true or not. But if my track record makes people to be afraid of it, well, that would be good. But I cannot answer whether my presence will put fear in people. I'll do my work, as you know me, in accordance with the book, since we've been doing since 1983. I'll do it that way. If it puts fear in people and they stop, well, that's okay. But I can't say whether it's true that it puts fear on people. I'll be presumptuous to say that.
Chairman, one worry I have about this appointment is the fact that the nominee has written profusely and sometimes said things or written about things that anybody seeing or reading will have some misgivings. Now, the issue I want to put to him is, how many people do you think, after reading this, will confidently say that you are going to be fair and objective? When you name people, when you castigate people for things that you see they were doing wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I write and admonish people because I think what they are doing is unconstitutional. And I write for the enlightened public because there are many people who even don't understand what I write. And they read them out of context. So I write for the enlightened public who can appreciate what I am writing. And I think the preponderance of majority of them will know that this is a man exercising his right as a citizen. Exercising your right as a citizen is different from taking prosecutorial decisions. As I said, if I were on the bench, even though I've held political appointment, that's not going to affect my judgment. I'm going to act in accordance with the spirit of judgeship. So for me, the enlightened public, which does not come to read, you see, the way you interpret any article depends on the bank of knowledge you bring to it. So you can read into it what is not there. You see, and that's what happens with most of my articles. People come with a different mind and read things into it and attribute it to me. And I have always not complained because you will see the headline. When you read my article, it is not that one. But my duty is to write it. And it's for the public to judge. And I'm saying that if the outpour of support for my nomination is anything to go by, that's why I said if they were to put it to a referendum, it would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
The chairman was looking at me as if I should stop.
Part of the question.
Go on. Oh, the leadership, they don't want me to ask the question, but I'll ask. Now, nominee, you had a number of reservations about the act. And one of the things that you were worried about was the question of being vetted, because we don't vet Court of Appeal judges. Now, this also appears to be a lower position than you have occupied before. That is Attorney General. Now, instead of an Attorney General writing, it's now a law that she has delegated her powers to you. Why do you accept a lower position when you have reached that height?
Chairman, I've said that I was nominated to the Supreme Court in 1999. I turned it down. The position of Special Public Prosecutor, the position of Special Public Prosecutor deals with a passion which I have fought throughout my life, to your very knowledge. And I'm not coming to it because of the money, because that's what you are saying. It's not the money. Otherwise, I would have gone to the Supreme Court. In 1999, yeah, maybe I could have retired on my salary. I'm coming because there's a job to do for Ghana so that opportunities will not throw it away like has been done in the past. And the president wants it to be done. And he thinks that in spite of the differences, my articles, some of them criticizing him, he thinks that having assessed me from the bar, I am a credible person who would do it fairly, transparently, and without discrimination, right? He puts it to me. I wasn't originally intending to do it, but then I asked myself, if this has been your passion, for which you and I joined the 31st December revolution, how could I refuse it? When our comrades died on the road for poverty and accountability. So I accepted it to help the president to see whether we can make a headway. I've said that we may succeed. I want us to succeed. It is for the future to tell what happens.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, nominee. And it is a delight to hear the passion with which you speak forthrightly on the subject that you feel strongly about. Do you have presidential ambitions?
Mr. Chairman, I was running mate in 2000. If I had presidential ambitions, it would have been seen already. I don't even have money to bring people here and feed them. How will I go and be wanting to be president? I've lived a life in government for 20-something years with nothing to write home about. So I'm not the type who has the resources to run for president. So for now, I don't have any ambitions. Well, I'm using that word because nobody can see into the future of time and see which seed will grow and which will not, as Macbeth said. So sitting as I am, I will tell you, where am I going to mobilize from? I've been a minister for over 20-something years. He knows my house. He knows my status. I'm happy about it because that was the promise we gave when we came into power. So I don't have any ambitions for that. If I had, it would have been seen. Indeed, people had approached me to run independent a number of times. And I told them I won't do what is not possible.
In 2001, when the MPP came to power, we discovered that you, in your capacity as Deputy Attorney General then, had commenced some work on the quality grain, what came to be known as the quality grain matter. Now, in your opinion, is the law on causing financial loss to the state couched too broadly?
Madam, before that law was passed, there was a debate within our circles. Those who said, let's leave this matter, and those who said, let's leave it broadly. For me, I don't think it's been caused too broadly. It is the law. We created it. If it's caught us, so be it. You remember when Kwame Nkrumah passed the Corruption Act and then subsequently the procedure for implementing it, the Committees of Inquiry Implementation Act. He never used it. He thought he had made a good law, but he never used it. When he left, Benny versus the Republic, Akenya versus the Republic, the next regime used it. And that's what happened. We never used that broad distance. So if they had not passed it, maybe there would have been no trouble, but they passed it. So when we left, it was used, and that is the law. I think it's too late to change it when others have suffered for it.
What, in your estimation, will be a measure of the success of your tenure as the first special prosecutor, if approved by this August House?
For me, the success will not be measured by the number of people in jail. It will be measured by the integrity of the organization I'll leave behind, which will work without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and will deal with crime as crime, and will not have the culture in which politicians can direct how investigations and prosecutions must go. The problem with this country has been the timidity of people who cannot stand their ground. And I will want, and you will see that, you will find how the FBI investigation is going. Some of the things come out from the FBI. They are courageous enough to say this is going to happen, that is going to happen. If we can have an institution which is working and therefore reducing corruption, in spite of the number of convictions, I would think we would have achieved something. And that is what I intend to do. As I told you, we'll put mechanisms for vetting appointees. We'll put the mechanism for oversight while they are appointed, so that it won't be like some institutions where you go there and within 1 year, you yourself, your houses are rising high rise. Because if you have such an institution, it cannot supervise any anti-corruption. That, if I achieve, will be a success. But as I said, if there are prosecutable offenses, good ones, in the national interest, we will prosecute. If we can retrieve money and we retrieve in their billions, we would have done well. And that is the aim. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. Now we are at the leadership level. And we will start from Honorable, Muntaka. Yes. Honorable Chief Whip. The Honorable Chief Whip to my left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the nominee. Since morning, I've heard you repeatedly, constitutional advocates, speak in defense of the Constitution. And I just wanted to find out whether Article 19, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll be happy to take some medication from you. When the Article 19 talks about fair trial, I thought that is embedded in it the right for people not to be called criminals until it's been proven beyond reasonable doubt or by a competent court. Is that the understanding I'm getting from you since morning?
The right to a fair trial is guaranteed by the Constitution. It means that if you send a person to court, he is presumed innocent. He should be given witnesses who understand the language in which he speaks. Right? He must be given the right to counsel. He must be given all the access that will enable him to put up a credible defense. And all the due process requirements. You should not take false confessions against him. All the due process requirements must be met. And that is what a trial is supposed to do. And the role of the prosecutor is to make sure that he does not shortchange the accused person by hiding evidence that will be in his favor. Some prosecutors do that, but that is objectionable. If there is evidence to the credit of the defendant, it is your duty to show it to his lawyer so that he may make what use he can make of it. It is not a persecution. It is a prosecution. And that a fair trial requires that indeed there must be prosecution and not a persecution. That's the way I understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my understanding is that for well over 35 years, you spent virtually your youthful and active life defending this. That is what my background and training prepared me for, and that's what I've been doing. Either as a defense advocate or as a prosecutor. I wish Honorable Minister was here. He would tell you how in Tamale some poor person's house was being taken, and then I came in. The house is still standing, the family is there. They call me from time to time. I feel satisfied than money. So, in that sense, I get that it will not be fair from this your background to conclude that somebody is a criminal when all this process has not been exhausted. Is that right?
A trial is a different matter. A discourse is a different matter. A convicted criminal is the one who has gone through due process. But if you accuse somebody of a crime, the fellow hasn't gone to trial. But if you have evidence, you may do so. Like I have chastised people, right? I think I have evidence. That's why I do so. Unfortunately, none of them has asked me to be investigated so that I can adduce the evidence. As I said, when people think you are stepping on stones, they never want to ruffle you. That is not a trial. That's advocacy. You see, and if you have the authority and the power, at that time the fellow makes that. You ask the police, pick him up, let him. But if you think he's stepping on stones and you don't do it, well, too bad. That is not a trial. That is advocacy.
So you believe that advocacy can mean that even if tomorrow this House approves you as a special prosecutor, any bystander can start calling you names and accusing you wrongly, and that will be fair?
As Attorney General, I was accused in the rented press. I had no mouth. I took it in my stride.
Oh, you didn't take those persons to court so that you'll be able to...
I took it in my stride.
Because I just heard you say that you were expecting that when you were doing those advocacy, those people would take you to court so that you get the opportunity to provide...
I said if they had control over investigators, they will let them investigate it. Then the truth will come out. If I say you are a thief and you are controlling the whole investigative machinery and you just sit there and don't ask them to investigate me to prove it, you can't complain later.
Oh, so when I heard you say as an Attorney General or even Deputy Attorney General, people have casted all these kind of insinuations against you, as then the legal advisors of the government, you didn't have what it takes to be able to either get the police to investigate so that you get the opportunity to clear your name?
Well, in 2012, the papers were casting those aspersions. Which police? Which police? Which were the papers? They were party-aligned papers. So how could I go to police to do that? It would be a height of madness, you know, when they were doing it simply because they knew they were protected.
I was not talking about when you just said when you were Attorney General and when you were Deputy Attorney General, people had accused you severally, but you took it as part of the...
For instance, Amina Wonton, they claim I was prosecuting her. I wasn't the one prosecuting her, but it wasn't prudent for me to say it because it was one of the attorneys who was, I didn't even know her. You see, but there is a decorum in office which you must keep. So I just kept quiet over it. At the end of the day, what I said they shouldn't do came to pass because the investigation didn't come to the Attorney General's department. They got one of our attorneys and he was prosecuting it. The girl was acquitted and discharged. And I kept my cool. And I have been invited to meetings to prosecute people for sedition. I've said, no, we won't do it. And I'm saying that in a certain office, like Attorney General or Special Prosecutor, there are times you keep a decorum. You won't respond. But as a private citizen, you have the right, as in the police, to exercise your democratic rights. Read the Greek and the Roman police and see how robust Aristotle, Socrates, and co. made their points.
Okay, Chairman, I just wanted to find out from the nominee whether he had a lot of trust and belief in Shrad and Yoko.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to head an investigative body. I won't prejudice my relationship with them by answering a question after my nomination.
I'm just finding out, as citizens, as a citizen vigilante, whether you had confidence or trust in Yoko or Shrad. I thought this is a fair question.
What I'm saying is, my views about Shrash have been made public. I'm not sure whether I've written about Iyoko. That I'm not very sure. But my views about Shrash have been made public. But I'm saying that I'm going to head an investigatory office. And I would not want anyone to prejudice my relationship with them by having me make a comment after my nomination about anybody.
Is it possible for you to share with us what your public view about Shrad was? You said
I wrote it, and you see, the problem is that at 66, I can't be a walking encyclopedia. You see, I write articles because I want them to be available for reference. I don't have the article, but I know I wrote about them.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the nominee his inability to go to Shrad or Yoko on any of those cases, some of which you have made public pronouncement and virtually emphatically talk about some other appointees. Was it to mean that you didn't trust that they would do a good job?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a constitutional defense advocate, and constitutional defense advocate is itself a constitutionally mandated function. I felt that was the better way to defend the Constitution. And I have a right of choice how I defend it. I mean, nobody can compel me to go to an institution if I don't want to. And there's an article I wrote explaining why I will not report a sitting president to an investigative body. I wrote an article like that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I heard the nominee earlier when we were talking about why he thinks the president might have nominated him, and he said he believes that the president was looking for somebody who will be fair, who will be unbiased. Is that right? Did I hear you right?
You heard me right, and you know it yourself. 2009, you know it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to find out from the nominee whether he remembers saying that I will fight NDC with my last blood. Did you really make those pronouncements?
Have the article? Can I have the article?
Asking you.
No. Let me see the article. I told you I'm not an encyclopedia.
Honorable nominee, hold on. Do you remember writing any such thing?
I don't remember unless I see the article.
Well, fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you don't remember saying that?
Until I see the article, I can't recollect it.
Do you intend going through your articles to find out whether you find that one?
Why will I do that? You are making the allegation.
I'm only asking you a simple question because you've written so many articles, and I'm asking you whether, if you say you don't remember, is it possible for you to go through your articles and confirm or deny that?
It makes
Honorable Chief Whip, do you have the article? If you have, kindly confront the nominee with it. Otherwise, I suggest we move on.
Okay. Nominee, when you wrote in your article that the Electoral Commissioner was appointed to rig the election, was that a fact or perception?
Chairman, I've answered this question already.
Yes, he answered that question, that it was based on perception.
So if it was based on perception, what has it got to do with rigging 2016 election?
Chairman, perception has a meaning, and the meaning of perception is what I depended on.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to be educated about the meaning of perception as used by the nominee.
Honorable Leader, you are an experienced member of the House. That's when something is public knowledge, you don't ask the person to prove it. So,
Mr. Chairman, the issue about rigging election, yes, it's public. But his answer earlier saying that it was perception is not public knowledge. He's not saying it. And I say, in his...
No, you are asking him to explain what he means by
what he means, because he said that it is his understanding of perception.
Perception. Is that, do we want a definition of perception, or what do you...
I just wanted his understanding. When he said it was perception, I wanted his understanding of the perception.
Yes. Yes.
As a former Minister of State from 1983 through to when I left office, I act on actionable intelligence. And as I said, intelligence is not evidence, but intelligence forms perceptions. And indeed, America went to war in Iraq based on perceptions and actionable intelligence. And I have said that I act on intelligence, and that intelligence formed my perception.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so from what the nominee is saying, the understanding is that those were not factual.
If you want facts to be proved, and we create the conducive opinion, I can adduce facts. I mean, if it's adversarial. But as I told you, I will not make a comment which is not adversarial in the absence of the adversary. If it's adversarial and I'm asked to produce facts, I will look for the facts and the fellow will defend himself. But I'm not prepared to accuse somebody in a committee hearing when the fellow is not available to respond.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my understanding of all the advocacy the nominee has made in public, I don't think you gave those persons opportunity to respond. You decided to just do it. Because on those ones, you are not under oath. Now you are under oath. And it is important that some of those things we are able to get them factually from you. Because when you said those things, you are not under oath. Now you are under oath.
Chairman, I was exercising a constitutional right, and every other citizen has the right of response. There were several responses. If I knew it was going to be an issue, maybe but there were several responses to it. And I'm saying that these were written over a period of time. And unless you give me the concrete things, don't expect me to say that I did that, I did that, I did that. It's not possible. And I don't want to make a comment about somebody when the fellow has no right to answer. Now that I've been nominated as special prosecutor, I won't do that.
Mr. Chairman, will I just ask that does the nominee still holds the view that the 2016 election was rigged? 2016, because you said Charlotte was appointed to rig. Now 2016 election is over. Do you still hold that perception that it was rigged?
Mr. Chairman, the 2016 elections was won. Clean and clear. Yeah. And you see, the problem we have in this country is that you don't know how things were put in place by advocates of constitutional defense to make sure that nobody was able, I was an activist, nobody was able to rig and misrepresent the numbers. When I was writing about rigging, we were putting countermeasures against it. You see, that's what we did. And I'm telling you, as a former Minister of Interior with responsibility for security and intelligence, we definitely put in countermeasures.
Very interesting, Chairman. But Madam Charlotte Osei still supervised the 2016 election. So if you're able to put countermeasures and what have you, and yes, she still supervised, do you still hold the perception at the time that she was appointed it was to rig the election?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Charlotte Osei is facing, if she rigged the election, she will be removed as a commissioner. I wouldn't prejudice what she's doing now by making comments when she has no access to refute what I'm saying. I mean, there's a committee properly set up on her, which could, the consequence of which could be die. Why will I sit in this house and make comments when she cannot refute it? I don't think that is fair.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, let's move on. Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee whether in January he was in Wesley Girls Secondary School, Senior High Secondary School in Cape Coast.
Since I was born, I've never stepped there. The best of my knowledge, I've not gone there.
So you've not been there before?
This year or any time, I haven't been there.
It's good to know this. Mr. Chairman, earlier when he was being asked about the issue at the 2012 that led to his resignation, he said that the resignation letter that he had, it was done under some conditions. Is it to understand that, Mr. Nominee, my senior brother, Amidu, you didn't believe in the apology or the letter that you signed? It was done under duress. Is that the perception that I got? Because sitting here, I thought that when I hearing you, that was what I got. Is that right? Am I right?
Mr. Chairman, I said that elders persuaded me to write that letter, even against my best judgment. And the chairman of the Council of State said he was going to give it to the president personally. And I've explained the context. And I've told you that as nordness, even when you are right as a junior, you are never right. I've told you, you know it. It's only in your absence that elders will tell the elder one that, look, you were wrong.
Well, Mr. Amidu, this is where I have my difficulty, because you still remain a Northerner. You still have people who are older than you. You still have some uncles around. You still have probably some in-laws who are still around. Now you are going to be a prosecutor. Should circumstances of that nature comes up, are you going to barge in because you are a Northerner, and as a Northerner, when elders talk, even when you don't believe in it, you still have to go ahead? Is that what I'm getting?
Mr. Chairman, I've learned very hard lessons from what happened. And it's only a fool who doesn't learn from his experiences. I've learned very, very hard lessons of trusting people, elderly people. That is why I don't have friends. I keep my own counsel. So I've learned lessons from all those things. And I will work with the lessons. Nobody will push me around.
Oh.
And those elders, some of them have sent people to apologize to me for the circumstance.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee, when he wrote the article about the investigation of Anas Almiao Anas, was that a fact or it was also based on perception?
Mr. Chairman, I've answered this question. I have said that Anas registered a company, and I had made searches at the Registrar General's Department, and I wrote an article. Anas is not here. I wouldn't say anything that would be adverse to him when he has no right of response. If he's asked you to be his counsel, that would be a different thing.
Mr. Chairman, in one of his articles, he wrote that Anas was commissioned by the late President Mills to investigate both the judiciary and parliament. And after his death, President Mahama made them to hold or to, for a better word, more or less like discount that of parliament and only present that of judiciary. Is it right that that was what happened?
That was my viewpoint, which I wrote.
So, Mr. Chairman,
and you see, I said that he had a service passport. He himself came out to say, yes, he had one. That was part of my evidence. I'm saying that I wouldn't talk about Anas on that issue. Unless Anas is here, then I can confront him with the fact. You are a third person. I wouldn't want to say something about Anas when he is not here, because you don't know what has gone on between Anas and myself since the last time you saw us quarreling on the air.
So, Mr. Chairman, is it not better for us to also know, especially we are Parliament, if you say that he was asked and probably accused the former President Mahama of conniving with him not to publicize that of Parliament? I just wanted to know whether this was facts or it was also perception.
It was intelligence collected. And indeed, if I want to tell you, some of the people who told me are deceased. I wouldn't give you the names of my informants. You know that. You cannot disclose names of informants. But I have informants who gave me the information. And I acted on that intelligence. If it happens to be wrong, that's a different thing. But as I told you, America went to war. Britain went to war based on actionable intelligence. In international relations and domestic relations, it is done. You act on it. Every day we act on information and intelligence. That doesn't mean that all of them may be right, but that is the action. You have to act on it as a human being. And I did act on them.
Mr. Chairman, I heard the nominee say that intelligence is not facts. Is that right?
I said that intelligence
is not evidence.
Evidence. And if you have been following carefully in circles, I remember, I don't know whether it was Kwame or somebody who was asked whether he was acting on facts. And he said, no, I'm acting on intelligence. You know, because intelligence has a special meaning. They are analyzed, and it's like with precision of mathematics. It's like a research. You come to a theory and you implement it. It's not every theory which is right. But once it has not been challenged, it stands as theory for the meantime.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so my senior brother has canvassed this issue of our culture, our tradition, that makes what we are, earlier in an answer to your question. As a Northerner, then will you say it is ethical to accuse others based on either perception or intelligence that has not been proven, whether it was ethical to do that?
Well, intelligence, before you act on intelligence, you are certified about its credibility. It doesn't need to be proven. Otherwise, it will cease to be intelligence. And I'm not aware that in the North, there's what the distinction you are trying to make. You know, I'm not aware that there's that distinction you are trying to make. So maybe I don't understand your question.
What I'm saying is that, as you know, I mean, if you are in my family, now you'll be heading towards the family head. And you know that in the North, we just don't go around speculating. We see it as unethical to be speculating something that cannot be proven or something that is based on hearsay. I thought that's how you brought us up as senior brothers.
Mr. Chairman, I disagree entirely with his interpretation. I am not sure whether you really grew up in the North.
Well, you nominee, who is my senior brother, knows very well that even though I didn't grow up in the North, I grew up in a setup that is very similar to the North, which is the Zongo community in Kumasi.
No, I grew up in the North. I grew up there, the custom and everything. I didn't mix it with foreign culture.
Are you saying, while you are saying that the Zongo culture is diluted with foreign culture, is that the understanding I'm getting from you?
To tell you is that there's a community of, look, there are not only Northerners in the Zongo. All the tribes are there, right? So it's an amalgam. A culture is developed which is different from what we back home practice. That's what I'm saying.
But you agree with me, if you go to Tamale or Baga or Wa, it's not one tribe or two tribes that are there. Almost all the tribes are there too.
I'm talking about where I come from.
I thought I heard you say you grew up in Boku or something.
Yes, and in Boku, when there is actionable intelligence, you act on it.
Chairman, earlier the nominee said that the Dr. Obeda Samoa was not his boss. Did I hear right?
He was not my boss. He was an attorney general. I was his deputy. That doesn't make him a boss over me.
So when you become if this House approves of your nomination, you become the special prosecutor. Your deputies, are you going to be their boss, or they are just deputy special prosecutor?
There will be deputies. I'll be primus inter pares. First among equals.
Was Dr. Asamoah first among equals?
Sure. I did most of the cases, got to the law reports. He didn't write them for me. He didn't read for me. I did it on my own steam. I did it before he even came there as acting attorney general. So how can he be my boss?
Mr. Nominee, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee what is his general view about judgment death. So finding out your general view about judgment death in our country.
Judgment death is such a wide subject that it will be difficult for me to give a general view about it. All I know is that when you go to court and win a case, you have to enforce it. And that is why the case I won in court should be enforced. But there was a committee on judgment that they issued a white paper. I haven't bothered to bother my head about it, because if you read my paper, I have said that commissions of inquiries, because we don't have commissions of inquiry implementation acts, right? They tend to die on the drawing board. No action is taken. You can't even prosecute. The judgment is equivalent to that of a high court, right? And yet there is no procedure to prosecute. Under Nkrumah, they said that once there's a finding, the onus shifts to the defendant. There's no plea taken to come and prove that he didn't do it. So there was. Now we don't have it. That is why it's difficult to prosecute results of committees of inquiry. If you go and start a fresh prosecution, you will be faced with a judgment of a high court. And you can't go beyond it. So that is the problem with the judgment that I know. As for the whole report of the Judgment Death Commissioner, I read selectively those which affected cases I had sent to court.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee, as he walks gradually into the office of the special prosecutor, if there's any judgment that, will he be interested in knowing the details and possibly finding out if there are culprits for them to be dealt with?
I'm not going to that office looking for victims. I'll be going to that office to deal with cases that have been investigated or reported, and if they are prosecutable, prosecute them. I'm not going to make it my job being a complainant in cases. Somebody has to complain. The case has to be investigated. It will come to me as if it needs to. And then an opinion will be given. But I'm not going to start the job by fishing for people. That will not be fair.
Mr. Chairman, in an earlier answer to a question about what happened when he was Minister for Interior at Fire Service, and he said that when he got to the Attorney General's office, when later he became the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, reporting that somebody picked the files and said that people from above, knowing who you are, did you try to find out who were those above and giving those instructions?
Mr. Chairman, I said that the dockets were collected from the DPP. And it transpired that my deputy was instructed to collect them just in case I decided to prosecute them. And I just thought that, well, if the deputy wants to handle it, let him handle it. And then not long after I left. But the dockets can never get missing. They will be there. Several attorney generals have come. They haven't dealt with them. It's not my duty to go looking for them.
No, it's not.
But it's not my duty to go looking for them.
Mr. Chairman, it's not about now. It is when you had the opportunity, because you were then the Attorney General, if others had instructed and knowing who you are vigilante as you are, I'm going to inquire who and be able to challenge, because you've adduced a lot of evidence this morning or even afternoon telling us how you challenge the status quo, which is a very good thing. I wanted to find out that in this particular instance, why didn't you challenge the status quo by trying to find out who is trying to prevent prosecutions from happening?
What once bitten, twice child. When I tried to challenge the status quo, you know the consequences.
When you wanted to what?
When I tried to challenge the status quo, you know the consequences.
But this was after. That one happened before this one.
Yes, and I'm saying my deputy was instructed to take the dockets. And I didn't want to create a confusion in my ministry by fighting my deputy. And he was a lawyer, and I knew the dockets would be there even when I had left. So why ruffle feathers?
Well, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, if they say that I'm a vigilante, it does not mean that I'm foolhardy. I use common sense. The situation didn't demand me to fight over it. And I have told you that one of them was somebody's cousin. Right? So it was better to leave the docket there in the hope that one day somebody will use it. And I'm not foolhardy or Don Quixote fighting the windmill. I mean, credit me with some discretion that there are certain situations, common sense does not dictate that I should fight.
Well, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, the nominee picks and chooses which one he mentioned, because he has said severally here he would not want to talk about the Anas, he would not want to talk about Charlotte because she's not here. But he freely told us about Batodro taking fast when he's not here.
Honorable Chief Whip, that is not an allegation of wrongdoing. Don't confuse. When you say, I will not say something which will prejudice an investigation, it means that what he has in mind may be termed as wrongdoing. He says, Anas is not here. If I make things about him, he cannot respond. But if he says, my boss took it, that is not an allegation of wrongdoing. So I think the comparison is not fair. So you can ask another question, please.
Well, Chairman, I will not want to litigate this. If you say somebody has taken a file, that's why the prosecution has not happened. I don't know how it will be understood by anybody listening to us. But he said someone was someone's nephew. It clearly shows that it is because of that nephew or niece, if I heard him, that's why it didn't happen. And those listening to us, how does that information go to them? Well, I said I will not litigate this.
Very well, but you see, if you pick and choose, as you suggest, this issue about somebody being somebody's nephew was an answer given to an earlier question. And the link was not to Martin Odro, if I understood him correctly, if I'm wrong correctly. Sorry? It wasn't to Martin Odro. It wasn't. That is what the person who said, no. So how do you link it to
Chairman,
Martin Odro?
I don't think we need to.
Please. My ruling is that you should ask another question.
We need to respect that ruling. Mr. Chairman, when it came to the issue about an article that the nominee wrote accusing Honorable Ablakwa of hiding behind a name, and unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, he said all manner of things accusing Honorable Ablakwa. When Honorable Ablakwa came out to say that I am not the one, this is not me, the person even came out and said that I am the one writing. I thought my senior brother, Amidu, will have made some comments about either apologizing or maybe calling Ablakwa. I don't know why he didn't do that, because then if it was perception, now somebody has come out to say that I am the one doing it. He himself has said, I'm not the one doing it. Can I know why he didn't try to call Ablakwa to, as his maybe son or probably far younger brother, apologize to him that maybe perception was that you, but now that you say it's not you, I think that's okay.
Mr. Chairman, there was an argument between the honorable member, who is a member of this committee, and me. I today am here as a nominee. It is very unethical, simply because I'm here as a nominee, for an argument between me to try to be vindicated just because I'm a nominee. I think it's most unfair. Because I happen to be a nominee, you take advantage of it when he's also a member of the committee and know that he's going to vote on my approval or not. You are raising matters pertaining to him. I don't think that is ethically fair.
Honorable nominee, the issue I think the Chief Whip is raising is that you made accusations against a member. I mean, whether or not a member. Later, it was proving that, indeed, the reason for which you make the allegation, that article or whatever, it was not him. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, I insist that it was for him, and I said that I don't believe all the denials. I've written it. Okay. And I still believe, as I sit here, that those were all ruses.
So, Mr. Chairman, I want to know from the nominee, since he's even repeating it here, that he still believes in it. Is it based on facts? Because you've been saying evidence, perception. Is it based on facts?
Chairman, it's based on analysis of the internet, the facts disclosed by the internet, which I argued about. So that was the internet factual things, open source. It's on open source. And nobody can compel me not to believe in something which analysis of open source makes me to think creditably that factually he did it. And I said that what he was saying was just an afterthought. And I am yet to be convinced that it wasn't an afterthought. That is why I think that it's unfair, because I'm a nominee, for you to try to get me to make an admission which I have said clearly I don't believe in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee when he wrote that the 7th Parliament should do well to stay away from the bad ways of the previous Parliament. I just wanted the nominee to mention maybe some of the bad ways he knew the Parliament, the 1st to 6th Parliament, might have been involved in, that he wanted the 7th Parliament to stay away from.
Yes, Chairman. I haven't read that article. I don't know what was contained in it.
Mr. Chairman, I made a comment about a parliament that has been abrogated, whose term had ended, right? I don't see why I should explain what it did when I had written profusely about what it was doing. I've written about what it was doing.
Did the article contain what those things that...
No, I was just admonishing the new parliament to chart a new path. You know, and as I said, there are several articles which I wrote, and they were in defense, in excess of my rights on the Article 3. There are many, you know. So if you want me to, and I've said that I don't carry all my articles in my head.
Well, Mr. Chairman, maybe the reason I'm asking is that many of us sitting around this table even now had come from, I mean, the majority that has come from even the 2nd Parliament to date. It may be useful to guide us. Having been in the public service since 1983, that's much longer than many of us, with the exception of the like of Honorable Yelitre. It could be useful if you say the current Parliament should chart a new path to know some of the, but I thought that's a fair thing. In a way, advising how we should do, so that we ought to, because all of us aspire to be the best that our citizenry really want us to be.
Chairman, I wrote about contracts which I thought were not properly approved and all that. And when I wrote my article on this 7th Parliament, I remember even the majority leader agreeing with some of the things I said. But you don't expect me, you know, I wrote about contracts which I thought were approved, which should not have been approved and all that, you know. And those were the things I meant. Unfortunately, the parliament has ceased to exist. It cannot resurrect again. So I wouldn't keep his misdeeds in my head.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from Honorable Martin Amidu, when he wrote in his CV about Ghana Hausa, do we have anything like that? Well, I thought that it's Hausa. You and I know we speak Hausa, even though the tonation and sometimes the vocabularies may change, whether it is in Niger or Nigeria. Even in Nigeria, several of them have different, is that like to say the tree? So I don't know how you call this Hausa, Ghana Hausa. I don't know whether it is in any publication, because I thought that it's Hausa wherever
Honorable Leader, I beg you, this one was an aside. So I don't think we should make it part of, on a lighter side.
So today, and I speak, anytime he and I meet, we speak Hausa. I don't know whether, apart from today that we are doing vetting, he and I have spoken in English. We always speak in Hausa.
Ghana Hausa. Because you see, everybody knows that the Hausa we speak in Ghana is different from the real Hausa in northern Nigeria and in Niger. Our Hausa is unique. We've introduced even words which you cannot find in that place. Some of us are trying to learn to try to measure up to my son, Honorable Arga and Co. standard. That's why I was forthright to say that my Hausa is not the original, but it is the Hausa spoken in Ghana. And indeed, mine is even better than other people. They will tell you, na farimaka. But it's still Ghana Hausa. Do you get where I'm coming from?
I do. I do.
I don't.
Because you don't understand Hausa.
Yes, and you are required by our studying orders to translate na fariga.
I have told you. You see?
It means I've told you.
They were making now be. You see, it's what it I've told you. Some people in some parts of the country pronounce it in such a way that you may not even know that that's what it intends to say. But if you speak that type of Hausa, you have no difficulty at all understanding it. It's like pidgin. You see, it's like now they broadcast pidgin in BBC. But pidgin and Creole is different from real English. So if you say, do you speak English? The pidgin man may say, yes, I speak. I chose to say, I speak pidgin. That's Ghana Hausa.
Mr. Chairman, my very last question. My senior brother Amidu, in one of your articles, I'm just quoting a paragraph where you said, the spin is in the blood of the looter government, which loots and spin the plundering of the public purse for the like of Woyomi, Waterville, and others, and inflate contract prices to the detriment of the public purse. Will you be happy to mention some of the contracts that have been inflated, and whether when you get the opportunity, you take this opportunity to do the prosecutions?
Mr. Chairman, if you watch the article, it's all centers about the way the enforcement of the Woyomi judgment was treated. And we are still out trying to enforce that judgment. And the perception I got that something wrong was going on. As for inflated contracts, I am telling you that I have criticized the prices of certain contracts. And indeed, the minority at that time also called attention to some of the contract prices. So it is not me alone in Ghana who has worried. Recently, VRA people came complaining about prices. So if I have that perception, it's not a lone perception. You know.
Thank you very much. Honorable Majority Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in a response to a question posed by a member of the committee earlier, the nominee told us that by operation of law, he's no more a member of the National Democratic Congress. Just this morning, somebody alleged on one of our radio stations that you had resigned from the NDC and you have applied to be a member of the MPP. I want to get your take on that. If you have taken steps to become a member of the New Patriotic Party.
Mr. Chairman, I am a foundation member, not a founding member, a foundation member of the NDC. I was in the room where it was formed, both the NDC and the NCP. So, and I have always remained a foundation member. The General Secretary of the NDC put up a statement that he's not aware that I've written any resignation letter to his office. I believe in probity, accountability, and transparency, which is supposed to be the bedrock of the NDC. I haven't joined the MPP, but I believe that parties can collaborate in ameliorating the ills that plagues society. That is why we have political parties. Each is trying to see how best it can develop the country. So when the president offered me the nomination with his eyes open, that I'm a foundation member of the NDC, I accepted it and knew that from that day onwards, I was a potential public appointee, and knew that from that day onwards, I have to be neutral. But I have never said anywhere that I'm going to join the MPP. The MPP has its own ideology, which is a property-owning democracy. I see nothing wrong with it. I don't agree with it, but I see nothing wrong with it. They have a right to pursue that ideology. But I also recognize that one of the social interventions that helped people in this country was this thing President Kufuor brought and was paying people, indigent people, something. That was a social democratic policy, right? I cannot refuse to recognize that. So the two parties is coming to a time where they are congregating in terms of social interventions. So I agreed to do this job because I feel that the president was committed to reducing corruption. He never asked as a condition that I leave a party, but I knew that after accepting the nomination, I will not belong to his party or to the point from which I came from. I will not, and it is against prosecutorial practice for a prosecutor to allow politicians to influence. That's why I refer to Jackson, the federal prosecutor. It states everything clearly.
Mr. Chairman, in the critique of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Bill 2017, authored by the nominee, on page 6, the nominee had this to say: apart from the former chairman of the PNDC and later President Rawlings, President Akufo-Addo's speeches have so far demonstrated a sincere commitment to fight the scourge of corruption. President Nana Akufo-Addo appears to have a handle of the personal and structural violence which corruption causes to millions of our fellow citizens and our nation. I want to find out from the nominee what made him come to this conclusion.
Nana Akufo-Addo, as a lawyer, has been my adversary. We argue on different sides. But that's the way you find people's character, when you are acting on different sides. the person's integrity, his honesty in dealing with you, makes you to assess him. And as I said, since he assumed office, that's why I said his rhetorics clearly indicated to me that he was determined to fight the canker. And I have no cause not to believe that he was determined to do it. And it rhymes with what we have been fighting for from our infancy. So I believe that that is what he intended to do. And I've written what I believe he intended to do. And that's my opinion. If anybody disagrees with me, that's my opinion. And that's the perception I got from the way he presented himself.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to refer the nominee to Section 13.5 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, Act 959, Section 13.5. And with your permission, I read. The Special Prosecutor shall hold office on the same terms and conditions of service as a Justice of the Court of Appeal, except that the tenure of office shall be a non-renewable tenure of 7 years. What is the retiring age of a Justice of the Court of Appeal?
Well, according to the Constitution, it's 70.
Very well.
No, Chairman, you say very well. This question is prejudicial because of the pendency of a matter at the Supreme Court. I will assume that rather we undergo our process as Parliament and leave matters in the realm of the judiciary for a judicial pronouncement. I'm afraid the question of the Chief Whip, if you permit it, you may open the Pandora's box on many other issues on this subject. I'm just cautioning that fair to this process, we are doing our work as Parliament. Let us not. I haven't been served formally, but I've heard it in the media, and you've read it too. So, Chairman, anyway, I just want Chairman to be guided, but he may probably accommodate you and allow you to proceed. That's fine. Then he says the parameters for us to deal with it in subsequent matters.
Do you want to respond? Very well.
Mr. Chairman, I asked of the nominee if he knows of the retiring age of a Justice of the Court of Appeal. What is prejudicial about that? Parliament is not a party to any suit that is referring to. The minority leader says he has heard it in the media. Where is it? Is it before us?
Just restrict yourself to the... I think that probably I should have disallowed the question because it is a matter of public knowledge anyway, because it is in the Constitution. So the question really was, what is the retiring age of Court of Appeal judge? That is, for me, I didn't see how that was prejudicial. That was the only question. The point on which I could have said was, I could have disallowed it was that it's already a matter in official records. The retiring age of Court of Appeal, no, it's in the Constitution, yes. So that is that is the only where I probably did not. So the Constitution, we asked him a question which is already in official records, but beyond that, no. Very well, Honorable. Okay. Yes, Honorable Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Honorable nominee, I want to refer you to Section 22 of the Act, the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act. and it talks about the funds of the office. And it reads, the funds of the office include A, monies approved by Parliament, B, internally generated funds, and C, grants approved by the Minister responsible for finance in consultation with the Attorney General. My question is, with the budgetary challenges of our country over the years, do you foresee that you might have to rely heavily on internally generated funds? Do you have any innovative ways of generating funds internally? And do you think by doing so, your independence will be prejudiced?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have seen the internally generated funds. I was supposing that this matter will be taken up with the Ministry of Finance, because normally if you are going to generate funds internally and retain them, the Ministry of Finance will give you authorization. But as I reading the Act in its totality, I was wondering whether the monies that will be retrieved and the assets that will be retrieved and realized, the office may be permitted to use some as IGF. So this is there. So,
Chairman, the law, I recall the majority leader is here. We had a sharing formula.
Yes.
And in that formula, the Office of the Special Prosecutor will benefit, out of which some will go to the consolidated fund to allow for the functioning.
If we work hard, we will have some money.
We believe
if we don't work hard, we will starve ourselves, and then we'll have ourselves to blame. But I don't think we are going to accept money from people we are likely to investigate. Because
the deputy leader can refer to Section 66, utilization of proceeds of realizable property. And I believe, even as many of us will recall, at that point, the Attorney General even intimated what her own position was relative to this matter.
Mr. Chair, my question was, does he have innovative ways of generating internally some funds? It is not about when it is generated, how it will be distributed. So my question is that, do you have a way in mind? And if you do, will that prejudice your independence as a special prosecutor? That has nothing to do.
Mr. Chairman, the only way we could have generated some funds is if we allowed the chance to raise funds from the donor community. But it's not, I can't see it there. So it's even going to be difficult for us unless maybe we come back. Because, for instance, the National Peace Council Act has a provision which allows for them to raise funds from recognized donor countries. We don't have it, but as I said, it's better to have the baby than to throw it away with the dead water. So, since this is a work in progress, we shall try to find, when the office is set up, together with my members, the board, and my colleagues, we shall find out whether there are any legal means. If it means coming back, or if the pursuant regulations could also serve the purpose, I think the Attorney General will have to exploit that. We have to exploit to the Attorney General. But as at now, we are a little bit limited. And if we want to go begging for money, we may compromise ourselves.
Exactly so. My next question, I want to refer you to Section 3A of the Act, which talks about the functions of your office. And it reads, to achieve the objects, the office shall, A, investigate and prosecute cases of alleged or suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses under the Public Procurement Act, Act 663, 2003 Act. My question is, we have the Public Procurement Authority that is also charged with the responsibility to investigate cases related to procurement malpractices. And my office exists as well. How do you intend to collaborate with these already existing institutions to prosecute offenses related to corruption in public procurement? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the Act enjoins us to cooperate with other institutions, and also it enjoins us to disseminate information. So even though we have authority to prosecute corruption offenses arising out of procurement offenses, there will definitely be collaboration between the institutions. We cannot access information from the procurement agency without collaborating with them. So I think that there wouldn't be a conflict. If the procurement agency is in a position to better implement it, we may wait for it to do it. If they think we're in a better position and they send it to us and we think there's a prosecutable case, we may decide to take it. And since there are other agencies, I think that teamwork is the best. And with our sharing ideas, we cannot stand alone.
My next question relates to the Auditor General and the fact that under Article 1876, the findings and the reports of the Auditor General is subjected to interrogation and probe by the Public Accounts Committee. After that, the committee makes recommendations on the findings of the Auditor General, and it comes on the floor. I want to find out from you how you intend to work out these recommendations for prosecution. Because even in Parliament, I remember the chairman, when he was sitting in the chair of plenary, actually asked the Public Accounts Committee to go back on some matter and clearly spell out what sanctions should be preferred against certain wrongdoers. So I want to find out from you how you intend to work with the recommendations of Parliament.
Mr. Chairman, when the office is set up, I believe collectively we will put in mechanisms as to coordinate it with other organizations. As I said, we can only prosecute dockets upon which there are witness statements and charges. So if there is a recommendation with witnesses who can make statements, it means that the investigation will have to start all over again. The Auditor General's report, if you presented it directly to a court of law, you will not get a conviction. You have to read it. If there is a corruption offense disclosed, you will have to begin a corruption investigation independent of the Auditor General's report. And it is only when you have built a docket which you can present to a judge for a trial that you go to a trial. So the perception that the Special Prosecutor's Office can run with the Auditor General's report to court should be disabused. You will need human beings who will testify, and there will be a corruption offense disclosed. If we have to go for documentary evidence, we will do that. But dockets will have to be built on each case. If Parliament sends us a recommendation, it will be the basis of which to look for witnesses, credible witnesses, which will enable us to build a prosecutable docket. Because if we went with the parliamentary recommendation to court, we shall not succeed. Just like going with a committee of inquiry report to court, you will not succeed. You have to build a docket. You have to get credible witnesses. And that has been the bane of corruption. Many people don't want to come forward to give evidence. We just pray that now that there is a clamor by the public, they will come forward not only to tell us this one is corrupt, but also to witness statements to be taken from them, which they can testify in court. Otherwise, we can't go on hearsay. So that is, we are going to work strictly according to prosecutorial practices as recognized under the law. I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
My last one. When the acts of parliament are passed, we've been consistent in the promulgation of the law by saying that after the coming into force of the law, and in this particular one, the act you're going to work with, Act 959, in Section 78, it is stated explicitly that within 90 days, there shall be a regulation to the law. Many a times, the law will exist for several years without regulations. Can you give your assurance to the committee that you act within the timelines specified or stipulated in the law for the enactment of its enabling regulation? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the regulations will be very important if the office is to run, because it's under the regulations that we are going to set up standards for recruitments and all that. So, personally, I think that it should be doable. But much will depend on this August Parliament, because you have to approve a deputy prosecutor. Then the executive will have to send letters for the nominees on the board. They will have to come in. They will have to be sworn in. We'll have to appoint a secretary to the office. So when we have that nucleus, we can begin working with the Attorney General on proposed legislation and regulations. Already there are regulations governing other law enforcement agencies. So I believe that we'll look at them, look at other best practices elsewhere, and we should be able to meet the 90-day deadline. With the cooperation of my colleagues, if you approve me, with the cooperation of those you'll be approving and the board, we should be able to help the Attorney General to meet the deadline. Because without that, we may not be able to start running. We'll be stuck. So it is a sine qua non that within the 90 days, the law is satisfied. And if it is not done, the law is breached. And we are respecters of the law. And we will try to act to achieve legality.
Thank you very much.